Some parents are scrambling to find a place to stay for their child's college graduation from Virginia Tech after they say a bed and breakfast canceled their reservations last minute.
And while some have received refunds, others are still out thousands of dollars. Target 7 investigator Isabella Ledonne joins us now live from Blacksburg. So Isabella, how many families are affected by this?
Gina, Natalie, I've had more than 20 families reach out to me saying that they booked a room here at the Clay Corner Inn, but then just days before check-in, they were told they don't have a place to stay. Parents told me that they made reservations up to a year ago and paid in advance, but then they found out that a dozen other parents had booked the same exact room. I found out Clay Corner Inn has a history of last-minute cancellations, leaving many parents frustrated and without a place to stay. It's an ideal spot for graduation weekend. Clay Corner Inn is within walking distance to downtown Blacksburg and campus. That's why Tammy Hayden was excited when she secured a suite from the hotel's waiting list for this weekend.
Finding somewhere to stay, not only for graduation, even football games, it's huge. And, you know, it's frustrating. It's scary to think you have nowhere to stay.
But she grew suspicious when there was no written confirmation and had to pay over Venmo. Hayden says she kept receiving excuses of a family emergency every time she confronted the manager.
My heart went out to him. I felt bad. I guess I was sort of scammed because, you know, I believed him and I feel like such a fool now.
Other parents shared similar stories. Helen Hirschner is still waiting for her refund from Homecoming 2023 when her room was canceled a few days before the big game.
And it said, we've overbooked and someone booked before you and you no longer have a room. Look, I've paid for this room in June. Here's all my receipts. I paid via Venmo. You have all the information, and still really no response. At that time, the message was that Josh and his family were having a personal emergency.
And Brooke Rowley says the same thing happened to her a year ago. A last-minute cancellation on graduation weekend with no clear reason why.
And I kept getting excuses. There was a death in the family. There was a medical emergency. They had software issues. They had to change companies. And because of this new software system, they were unable to reimburse me. And it was thousands of dollars. So what happened is I ended up having to refute the charges with my credit card company.
The hotel's website lists multiple travel awards and high reviews. Yet the BBB of Western Virginia says they've received several complaints about the inn, and it's not accredited. In one email to a customer about canceling this weekend for graduation, the manager said that he is closing his relationship with the property owner and he's struggling to make rent payments. Gina, Natalie, I've been reaching out to the inn all day trying to get a hold of somebody, but nobody has returned my many messages. I'll be following the story and let you all know when I do hear back from management.
Imagine booking a hotel room only to find several others were booked for the very same room on the very same night. The saga over a Blacksburg bed and breakfast continues, leaving dozens of families demanding answers and refunds.
We first told you last night a local hotel canceled multiple reservations just days before one of the biggest weekends at Virginia Tech, graduation. Target 7 investigator Isabella Ledonne joins us now in the studio. So Isabella, you've been digging into what led up to this, and I understand the inn has a history of last-minute cancellations?
Yeah, Gina, Natalie, that's right. Several parents told me Clay Corner Inn canceled their prepaid reservation this past fall before Homecoming, Parents Weekend, and even last year's graduation. But it wasn't until more than 30 parents came together this year that the group realized the cancellation issue was bigger than any of them thought.
I was disappointed. I have to say that I could not believe it was this large of an issue.
Janet Yan is one of at least 30 parents who thought she would be staying at Clay Corner Inn for graduation. But when she got an email saying her reservation was canceled days before check-in, she made a spreadsheet for all the affected parents.
It has grown just so rapidly. I can hardly keep up. I keep finding new stories from parents.
That list shows dozens of people booked the same 4 rooms for the same weekend. 14 reservations for the Pandapis room, 7 for the New River room, 4 for the Cascade room, and 23 reservations for the Dragon's Tooth room.
He knew that he had multiple bookings. He knew, and we all paid.
According to the list, 30 families paid a total of $55,000 for rooms on graduation weekend, primarily through Venmo. Many, like Susan McCabe, are still waiting on a refund.
The amount of time I have spent trying to resolve this issue is just unexpected and taking away from all my preparations for making the trip to Blacksburg for graduation.
McCabe says the manager hasn't been clear with how or when refunds will be sent out.
Very strange responses, but I have not heard anything since 12:30 yesterday afternoon, and I have not received any reimbursement.
Most parents, like McCabe and Jan, hope this stressful situation doesn't happen again.
There needs to be a consequence for this because clearly parents were taken advantage of. And this is just a sad day for all of us.
Well, dozens of families are still waiting for refunds after a Blacksburg bed and breakfast canceled their reservations for this weekend's Virginia Tech graduation. Tonight, we're digging deeper into the hotel management's financial troubles. Target 7 investigator Isabella Ledonne joins us now in the studio. So, Isabella, I know you first told us about this yesterday, that the manager of the inn filed for bankruptcy. So what have you found?
Yeah, Natalie, I found court documents that show the manager of Clay Corner Inn owes more than $150,000. He filed for bankruptcy last fall, and families I spoke with told me he was still collecting money for reservations and even operated another bed and breakfast, all while he was declaring bankruptcy. Many families join a months-long wait list for a chance to stay at Clay Corner Inn for big events at Virginia Tech. The bed and breakfast management told the majority of parents to pay over Venmo and pay in advance. When families were told over the weekend the inn was closing and the reservations were canceled, they asked Target 7 to investigate. Federal documents show the inn's manager, Joshua Roseberry, filed for bankruptcy in October 2023. Many of the listed expenses are for credit card companies, debt collectors, and trade debts. Excluding his student loans, the documents show Roseberry's biggest debt amounts are for a collection agency and PayPal, the company that owns Venmo. The claims total more than $167,000, according to the documents. Roseberry is also involved in a debt collection lawsuit out of New York for owing nearly $70,000 in 2021. A U.S. trustee confirmed Roseberry is the manager of both the Clay Corner Inn and a Christiansburg bed and breakfast, the Oaks Victorian Inn. Roseberry has not responded to my multiple calls or messages for a comment. His next bankruptcy hearing is expected in August. The Virginia Attorney General's office told me they have received several complaints against the Clay Corner Inn, and they are all still open cases. Natalie, as for the families, many of them told me that they have found other places to stay for their children's college graduation. However, since our reports have aired, I've had multiple community members reach out offering to help, and Virginia Tech also reached out saying they are trying to help these families as well.
Target 7 investigator Isabella Ledonne continues to uncover more information in this case, and she joins us now live in the studio. So, Isabella, I understand that we're now hearing something from the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, Natalie, that's right. In a statement posted to their Facebook last night, Clay Corner Inn management said neither the property owner nor the company owner were aware of the overbookings until this week. It went on to say the person responsible for the overbookings has been disassociated from the company and the inn's operations entirely. After the statement went out, parents told me they still had questions about why their reservations were overbooked by dozens of families.
I felt like it was a last desperate grasp to try to pretend like everything was okay and to deflect the situation and blame it on someone else.
Carrie Powers is one of the dozens of parents demanding answers for her canceled reservation, like why families were told to pay in advance through Venmo and why they were told the inn was closing when guests could still be seen on property on Friday.
It's very upsetting. It's just so dishonest. And it's so unfair to the families going through this.
Our Target 7 team learned the Clay Corner Inn is delinquent in its meals and lodging taxes from 2024, 2023, and 2022. The town of Blacksburg is pursuing collection action on the taxes. Inn manager Joshua Roseberry owes $167,000 in bankruptcy claims, but it's unclear if that includes his restitution fees. Roseberry was convicted of setting a Radford church on fire in 2005, causing more than $300,000 in damages. He was sentenced to a year and 5 months in prison and to pay for the $300,000 damages. Radford's Commonwealth attorney says that money has not been paid. The Montgomery County Commonwealth Attorney told me she can neither confirm nor deny if there is an active investigation into the Clay Corner Inn and the cancellations.
I understand families are still trying to get refunds, with some even now filing police reports.
Yeah, Natalie, many families say they have filed a police report while they still wait to get their money back. Despite my numerous attempts to get a hold of the inn's management, the last thing we were told was the person who is responsible for all the overbookings is no longer with the company. Tonight, the Blacksburg Police Department has opened an investigation. 45 families were supposed to stay at the Clay Corner Inn for Virginia Tech's graduation weekend. Those reservations were canceled days before check-in, with an email from property manager Josh Roseberry saying the inn was closing. While some got their money back in the days that followed, the majority of parents are still waiting on refunds, totaling more than $58,000.
Why some and not everyone else? I still feel like we're fighting for the families who have not received their refunds, especially some from last year in October. So, that goes a long way.
The Virginia Attorney General's office said it's received multiple complaints about the Clay Corner Inn. There is now a Better Business Bureau alert for the inn after the agency has also received complaints of management not honoring reservations dating back to August 2023. The Blacksburg Police Department says there have been numerous complaints regarding the Clay Corner Inn. Parents like Darren Gentile are hoping to prevent something like this from happening again.
If we don't get our money back, just keeping people from going through the same situation and not encountering that is kind of the goal of the situation now. I'd love to get the money back, but all in all, I'd just like to, see justice be served.
Blacksburg police told me if you feel like you are a victim of a crime, then you should call the non-emergency number and file a report. That number can be found over on our website. Natalie, as I've said, I've reached out to the Clay Corner Inn management dozens of times to try and get answers to our questions, like when families can expect a refund, why some families had to pay over Venmo, and why the business has not paid taxes to the town of Blacksburg, but I haven't received a response.
Target 7 investigator Isabella Ledonne has been following this from the very beginning. Isabella, I understand the business hopes for a fresh start with a change in management.
Jean, the owner of the building is now the manager of the inn's daily operations. The lease with the Clay Corner Inn was terminated 3 weeks after the mass overbookings happened, and now the inn has taken on a new name and a new way of business. Paul Nezarevich is the owner turned manager of the Blacksburg Bed and Breakfast, formerly known as the Clay Corner Inn. A teacher at Salem High School, Nezarevich leased his property to Josh and Jenna Roseberry.
I had no involvement in operations of the business. In fact, I was preparing my students for AP exams.
Nezarevich ended the Roseberry's lease after more than 50 families spoke out about being overbooked for one of Blacksburg's most popular weekends.
I feel like those 4 days that WDBJ7 reported, I was learning something new like every single day. Nobody kind of expected anything to this effect.
The Clay Corner Inn's parent company has dissolved, leaving Nezarevich to sort through all the records and keep the inn running.
This is definitely not the way I expected my summer break to begin. But every day that we continue doing it, there's fewer and fewer issues that come up.
One task is working through future reservations, which were also overbooked under the Roseberry's management.
So if anyone has those concerns, I would encourage them to reach out to me personally. I'll have those conversations on a case-by-case basis.
Families previously paid for a coveted reservation in advance and over Venmo months before their stay. But Nezarevich says that won't be the case at the Blacksburg Bed and Breakfast.
We're only dealing with credit cards. So far, during the tenure of our operations, when people get here is when we charge them.
Communication and transparency are priorities for the Blacksburg Bed and Breakfast as the new owners work to restore their customers' trust.
The recent events have affected people's perception of this venue, but I'm also confident that as time goes on and we kind of establish our own brand and our own reputation, that our reputation is going to, speak for itself.
It's a large task at hand, but one that Nezarevich says is fueled by his family's passion for the community.
This is the only bed and breakfast in Blacksburg. People tell you how much they enjoy this experience. It affects you. It just makes you feel good to be able to share that with others.
The new owner told me the Blacksburg Bed and Breakfast is up and running, and they are aware of the overbookings for graduation 2025 and future football weekends. However, those reservations are being worked through on a case-by-case basis, and anyone who has concerns can reach out to him. That direct line can be found over on our website. As for the families who were overbooked 2 months ago, many of them are still waiting for information about refunds. Jean, I've been checking with the Virginia Attorney General's office, Blacksburg Police, and the Blacksburg Commonwealth Attorney regarding the ongoing investigation into the Clay Corner Inn and Joshua Roseberry. However, that update is coming up in the next part of our investigation series tomorrow night. We do know the number of complaints filed with the Virginia Attorney General's office has gone up to 15 in the last month. Officials are also investigating the former manager's bankruptcy claims and his previous criminal record. At least 45 families booked a room at the Clay Corner Inn for Virginia Tech's 2024 graduation weekend, only to have their reservation canceled days before their students walk the stage. Many paid thousands of dollars in advance over Venmo to former manager Joshua Roseberry, some paying as early as October 2023. Documents show Roseberry filed for bankruptcy in fall of last year with more than $100,000 in debt. The two largest claims are for a collection agency and PayPal, the company that owns Venmo. Our investigation revealed Roseberry was ordered to pay more than $300,000 in restitution for setting a Radford church on fire in 2005. Records in the Radford courthouse show that amount has not been paid, with the most recent receipt from 2021 showing Roseberry still owed at least $290,000. In a recent filing from June, a U.S. trustee referenced our investigation into the Clay Corner Inn and how he was made aware of Roseberry's restitution claims. Roseberry didn't include his restitution debt in the original bankruptcy claim, and there's no indication he scheduled payments during the case. The trustee made a motion to convert the case from Chapter 13 to Chapter 7, alleging Roseberry is using the bankruptcy case as a shield from restitution payments and as a shield from collection for ongoing fraudulent business practices at the Clay Corner Inn. The parent company that owns the Clay Corner Inn has been dissolved with the Virginia State Corporation Commission. The Roseberrys voluntarily canceled their business 2 weeks after the mass overbookings happened.
Isabella, you've been digging into how people can get refunds. So what does the process look like?
Natalie and Jean, it's a process that some Clay Corner Inn guests are already familiar with, disputing the charges with your bank or credit card company. However, it's proving to be a challenge for some families. I sat down with a financial expert to go over advice for anyone who may be caught in a tricky situation, waiting on a refund worth thousands of dollars.
I would move and act quickly to try to get this resolved with your financial institution.
Marlon Reeves is Freedom First Vice President of the Christiansburg Market. He's worked in finance for 17 years and says he's never seen a business dissolve after dozens of people request refunds, like what happened at Blacksburg's Clay Corner Inn.
That is a very unfortunate situation. There's really limited recourse as far as filing a dispute to try to get the money back from the company, but that doesn't mean that your financial institution, knowing the terms and conditions of what happened with this situation, they may still be willing to, again, make an exception on a case-by-case basis.
Because the business that owns Clay Corner Inn was canceled with the state, it's harder for banks to get that money back. Reeves says if your claim is denied, another option is to go to court.
You may want to consult an attorney and see what your legal options are about potentially maybe even filing some kind of civil action to see if you can recover any of your funds.
The more documentation you can show your bank, the better. That includes any messages, receipts, or charges from the business. Reeves recommends filing a claim as soon as possible after suspected fraudulent activity.
We have a timetable in which, at some point, Visa or MasterCard or whomever is not going to be able to honor the claim if you are too far outside of a window.
However, banks can still make exceptions.
Even if it's a partial refund, that's still better than no refund.
Experts also say when you're booking reservations online, a credit card will typically offer more protection than a debit card would. Jean and Natalie, as for the Clay Corner Inn, police are still investigating the numerous complaints from families about the former manager's business practices. As soon as we get an update on the case, we'll share that on air and online.